A very warm welcome, everybody, to the first Team Principals press conference of 2025 ahead of the FIA Formula One Australian Grand Prix. Joining us for this half-hour session, we have James VOWLES, Fred Vasseur and Andy Cowell. Now, James, can we start with you, please? I know it's only FP1, but Carlos was quick in testing a couple of weeks ago. He's repeated it in FP1. Alex Albon is up there as well. Are you starting to believe in the FW47 and its potential?
I believe in the work we've done across the winter, but it's just practice. And we're running, I'm sure, a slightly different program to some of our colleagues. We've done a good job. There's no doubt about it. And Carlos is in a great state. With Alex, we didn't have a great, we had an issue around the brakes. So we didn't give him a great session as a result of things. But we also have to be realistic. The top four are giants of this sport now, and that includes McLaren in that. And I'd love to say we break into there, but that's not a reality of where we are today. But our job is to make sure, I think you're going to see the field as the closest it's ever been. And it'd be great to be scratching on that door and being irritating from time to time.
And you think you can do that?
I think you'll find the grid is such that a lot of people can be able to do that. It doesn't take much to make a small mistake and drop back a few tenths. But I think what we have is a good foundation to build from, which is what I've been building towards as a team.
Tell us about Carlos, quickest at the test, P2 in FP1, and the impact he's had on the team so far.
I mean, first of all, he's been to a number of organisations, so understands different elements, and he's been across a number of drivers that we would all consider World Championship material, and that's made him into the driver he is today. His ability to communicate what's going on in the car is fantastic. His ability to understand what's going on in the team around him, how to bring them forward, what excellence looks like, what winning looks like, and how to effectively elevate our state from where we are is his strength. It's part of the reason why I wanted to make sure he was with us this year and beyond. In terms of what he's able to do, he's clearly quick in the car. We knew that before, but I've been really impressed and surprised with just his ability to interact with, be it the aero team or engineers, and bring them on the journey that we're on as well.
All right, thank you very much for that. I'm sure there'll be more questions for you in a minute.
Oliver Van Brunswick, Rural Sports. Question for James. Just how positive is the feeling in the team right now? Spirits surely must be high considering Carlos's integration into the team and the pace shown, no matter how early it is.
Yeah, you summarised it well. It's a team that's been through so much pain. And when I joined a few years ago, you could feel it. I know I'm a man of science, but you really could feel this sort of difficult period that the team had been through. And that's not the case now. But actually, one other item that we didn't talk about in there is our future. So it's great what's going on now. This is what I would call almost low-hanging fruit that we're picking up along the way. There's some great things that are happening back in Grove that are more coming online across the next few years. And you can see it in individuals that it's just building this momentum and positive energy. And so what you see today is just a little bit of a fallout for it. But as Fred described, this is an FP1. It's great. It's nice to see, but it's an FP1. Let's wait till qualifying in the race and a few races in, which is also why I'll bring everyone to our future and the destination we're going towards.
Thanks, James. Where are we going next?
Scott Mitchell from The Race. A question for James. James, Alex said yesterday that the simulations obviously showed that the car was going to be a decent step faster, but then actually when it ran in Bahrain, it was sort of inviting more confidence from the drivers than last year's car. It sort of implied that the car's actually maybe a little bit faster even than was expected. Is that a fair assessment? And what's brought those gains? Is it anything to do with the more updated Mercedes suspension that you've been able to adopt this year?
I mean, so first of all, I think where the car's moved to, we need to reassess based on a few things, but it's about on where we expected it to be. But what Alex was talking about is one of the aspects is from a driving perspective, it gives them a lot more confidence than last year's car. Formula One's a strange business. There's no silver bullets. There's no one thing that just suddenly switches a car on and makes it better. So the Mercedes rear suspension helps a tiny bit. What we've done over the last few years in terms of developing our tools and systems that produce better vehicle dynamics, better aero, better way of combining the car together is all coming together at the moment. And that's what makes effectively the package better and better. It's really not one area though. It's a culmination of a team that's starting to get strength working together.
Adam Cooper F1 for all three of you. The trailer for the Formula One movie was released today. What do you think of the footage you've seen over the last few months? What are your expectations for what the film will do for your sponsors and for the sport as a whole? And James, I think you filmed a cameo on the grid in Abu Dhabi. You're looking forward to seeing the result?
I suspect they've cut that from the film, for me, if you go and look what this has done, for example, an example would be Top Gun, and actually what it did in that example, it was enormous. Netflix has been transformative, and that's not just because they're filming over there in the corner. They really have transformed who we are as a sport and where we are today in the business, and we wouldn't be the business we are without them. My opinion is that the film will open us to a different market and a larger market as a result of it, and that's why we're all excited by it. And from all the trailers and the bits I've seen, that they have been, especially when you sit there and watch what they're doing with it, they've been doing everything to not make it look as though there's another gear that they've been missing or an accelerator you can push harder. They're fundamentally trying to replicate our sport in a film version, and that's what I connected to when they went through it.
Roger Byron from Beyond the Racing Line. James, how concerned are you about falling behind in the facilities race with Aston Martin's new wind tunnel going online? High-tech facilities, how are you concerned about your facilities going forward?
We fell behind 15 years ago. So it's not a question of now. We've been investing, as Aston have been investing as well, and McLaren have been investing for the last few years. So the point of that investment is to try and stem where we have been and create a new future. Wind tunnel, without question, Aston's will be benchmark, but I'm comfortable with that. Where we are in wind tunnel, I think, is, let's see where we are, but we are moving slowly up the grid, which is an indication we're probably using our facilities fairly well. So in that regard, I think we're okay. Where we have other issues is elsewhere within the infrastructure of the organisation, but we have plans in place to rectify that across the next years. It's something that you do overnight. So it's different to what you're saying. It's not so much falling behind. We're already on that investment pathway.
Okay, thank you, James. Next. Yeah, back to Adam.
Adam Cooper, F1. For all three of you, the Cadillac entry was confirmed last week after all the fuss over the last year and a bit. What are your thoughts on the pros and cons of competing with an 11th team on and off the track? What can General Motors bring to Formula One? And obviously, Fred, you're in a slightly different position as a supplier. Maybe you can tell us a bit how that partnership is developing.
Fred, why don't we start with you?
I think it's well summarised. The facts are that it is a big mark, it's a big brand, and it will bring elements to the sport we don't have today. Simple as that. What's happened in our past, now we move on and we fight them on track.
All right, thanks all. Back to the front, Ian.
Ian Parks, Racing News. Hello. Yeah, Ian Parks, Racing News 365. Sorry for the breakup. My question is also on Cadillac. Initially, when the entry was announced, it was going to be Andretti, and there was a lot of pushback at the time, in particular with regard to the likely dilution of prize money. So where do you stand now that there will definitely be an 11th team? Bearing in mind the prize money pie will be 11 slices and not 10. And did you have a say in, and are you happy with the anti-dilution fee that Cadillac has ultimately been forced to pay to enter F1? Thank you. That's to anybody who would like to answer.
James, give us your thoughts.
As I sort of mentioned a second ago, what's happened is now behind us. Ultimately, it's down to Formula One to manage the entry and the teams in that regard. And part of that gets contained in a future Concord. But my opinion of it is what it is ultimately. The difference to Andretti, to be really clear, is GM and Cadillac are major brands that bring with them huge amounts of accolade. And I think with them will bring the sport into a better place and more sponsorship that's involved with it. So just to explain the differential between what is Andretti and what is GM and Cadillac. It always has complications. It's less so about actually the dilution. It's more that within the UK, I think you're now going to get 9 teams in a different form. So I think it will only be Ferrari that doesn't really have some sort of base in the UK. And the biggest thing is you have some really great talent, and GM are doing a good job of attracting it. So it's that's probably more of a bigger issue than anything else.